My name is Penelope, and I'm about to tell you a story that still haunts me in my dreams. A story about love, betrayal, and a mother's greed that almost killed me and my unborn child. What you're about to hear isn't fiction. This happened to me 6 months ago, and the scars on my body are permanent reminders of the day my mother-in-law poured boiling soup all over me while I was 6 months pregnant. But here's the twist that saved my life. My husband heard everything. Every scream, every threat, every laugh, because our phone call was still connected, and he was listening when his own mother tried to murder his wife. If you've ever felt betrayed by family, if you've ever been told to stay quiet about abuse, or if you believe that evil people should face consequences, then stay with me. This story will make your blood boil, but I promise you, justice does exist. And please, hit that subscribe button because you'll want to see how karma finds its way to those who think they're untouchable. Trust me, what happened to these women will restore your faith in justice. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when my life was actually beautiful. Christopher and I got married 2 years ago in a simple ceremony that was filled with more love than any grand wedding could ever hold. It was a love marriage, the kind where you just know this person is your forever. Christopher wasn't just handsome, though believe me, he could make anyone's heart skip a beat. He was kind, protective, and he loved me with an intensity that made me feel like the luckiest woman alive. He worked at this prestigious company owned by a billionaire named Mr. Harrison, and Christopher was climbing the corporate ladder fast because he was brilliant at what he did. But from day one, his mother Margaret made it crystal clear that I wasn't good enough for her precious son. Every family dinner was torture. She'd make these comments that were designed to cut deep. Christopher, you could have married anyone. That Anderson girl was interested, you know. She comes from such a good family. Or, my personal favorite, Penelope, dear, you really should lose some weight. Christopher deserves a wife who takes care of herself. It didn't matter that I was perfectly healthy. It didn't matter that Christopher would immediately shut her down and defend me. Margaret had decided I was beneath her son, and she wasn't going to let anyone forget it. Christopher, God bless him, never wavered. He'd hold my hand under the table during those dinners, and later, when we were alone, he'd pull me close and whisper, "You're everything I ever wanted. Don't let her poison get into your head." That's the kind of man he was, the kind who chose love over his mother's approval, who stood by his choice even when it would have been easier to give in. When I found out I was pregnant, Christopher literally cried tears of joy. I'm talking about a grown man sobbing in our bathroom, holding that pregnancy test like it was made of gold. He became even more protective, more attentive, more loving if that was even possible. He'd come home from work and immediately ask about my day, about how I was feeling, if the baby had kicked yet. He'd talk to my belly every night, telling our little one how loved they already were. Those were the happiest months of my life, watching this man transform into a father before my eyes. Margaret's reaction? She accused me of trapping her son. "How convenient," she'd said with this cold smile. "Now he can never leave you." Christopher had been furious, told her that if she couldn't be happy for us, she shouldn't visit at all. But Margaret had other plans brewing, plans I wouldn't understand until it was almost too late. Everything changed when Vanessa Harrison walked into our lives. She was Mr. Harrison's daughter, this spoiled billionaire princess who'd never heard the word no in her entire privileged existence. Christopher mentioned her casually one evening. "The boss's daughter has been assigned to work on some projects with me. She's persistent." I should have paid more attention to the discomfort in his voice, but I trusted Christopher completely. He'd never given me a reason not to. What I didn't know was that Vanessa had become obsessed with my husband. She'd see him at work and decide that she wanted him, the way you might want a new handbag or a sports car. It didn't matter to her that he was married, that he was about to be a father, that he'd rejected her advances multiple times. Vanessa was used to buying whatever she wanted, and she'd decided Christopher was her next acquisition. She went to Margaret's house one afternoon, I found this out later during the investigation, and made her an offer. Can you imagine? This woman actually sat in my mother-in-law's living room and proposed a business deal to destroy my marriage. "I want Christopher," she'd said plainly. "I can make him a millionaire. I can make you wealthy beyond your dreams. All you have to do is get rid of his wife." And Margaret, blinded by greed and years of resenting me, agreed. Just like that, my mother-in-law became part of a conspiracy to destroy my life. They planned it all out like some twisted movie plot. Margaret would make my life unbearable until I either left on my own or, and this is where it gets really dark, until something happened to the baby. Because both women knew that without the pregnancy, Christopher might be easier to manipulate. The torture started slowly. Christopher would leave for work, kissing me goodbye and telling me to rest, completely unaware that the moment his car pulled out of the driveway, his mother would transform into someone I didn't recognize. She'd come over uninvited, she had a key, and the verbal abuse would start. "You're ruining his life, you know that? He could have had everything, money, status, a real woman. Instead, he's stuck with you and your bastard child." I tried to ignore it at first, tried to be the bigger person, but Margaret's cruelty escalated. She'd accidentally bump into me, causing me to stumble. She'd throw away the meals Christopher had prepared for me, claiming they were spoiled. She'd turn up the air conditioning until I was shivering, then act innocent when Christopher came home. I thought pregnant women were always hot. I was just trying to help. The threats came next, and they terrified me. Margaret would get close to my face, her voice dropping to this menacing whisper. "If you tell Christopher any of this, I'll make sure you lose that baby. I'll push you down the stairs and say you fell. I'll put something in your food. Try me, Penelope. See what happens when you cross me." She'd smile sweetly then, like we'd just had a pleasant conversation about the weather. I was trapped. Who would believe me? She was his mother. She'd raised him, and I was just the woman he'd married against her wishes, now acting paranoid and hormonal during pregnancy. Margaret knew exactly what she was doing, and she knew I couldn't prove any of it. Then Vanessa started showing up at the house. Margaret would introduce her as a family friend, someone who just happened to stop by. Christopher would be polite but distant. He had no interest in this woman, but he didn't see what I saw. The way Vanessa would look at him like he was already hers, the way she and Margaret would exchange knowing glances, the way both of them would stare at my pregnant belly with something close to hatred. When Christopher was away, they'd both torment me together. Vanessa would sit in my living room, in my house, and talk about her future with my husband. Christopher deserves someone on his level, someone beautiful, wealthy, sophisticated, not some nobody who got lucky. Margaret would nod along, adding her own venom. "My son will come to his senses eventually. Men always do." Christopher noticed I was becoming withdrawn, quieter. "Baby, what's wrong? You seem scared all the time. Is it the pregnancy? Are you worried about the birth?" His concern was genuine, his love evident in every word. I wanted so badly to tell him everything, but every time I opened my mouth, I'd remember Margaret's threats. I'd think about my baby, about keeping them safe, and I'd lie. "Just pregnancy anxiety, I'm fine, really." So Christopher did what Christopher does. He loved me harder. He'd come home early from work to spend time with me. He'd cook my favorite meals, run baths, rub my feet when they swelled. He'd hold me at night and promise me that everything would be okay, that we were going to be amazing parents, that nothing would ever hurt our little family. If only he'd known that the biggest threat was coming from inside our own circle. Margaret's abuse got worse as my pregnancy progressed. The slaps came when Christopher was definitely out of the house, the pushes toward the stairs that I'd barely avoid. She destroyed my maternity clothes, saying they were ugly anyway. She'd hide my prenatal vitamins, hoping I'd miss doses. I started losing weight despite being 6 months pregnant, and Christopher was worried sick. The doctors couldn't explain it because I couldn't tell them the truth, that my mother-in-law was systematically starving me during the day. I was living in constant fear, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I knew something terrible was coming. I could feel it in the way Margaret and Vanessa would look at me, like I was an obstacle they were preparing to remove. I started documenting things in secret, taking photos of bruises, writing down dates and times of incidents. Some part of me knew I'd need proof eventually, if I survived whatever they were planning. That day started like any other nightmare disguised as a normal morning. Christopher had an important meeting at work, something that would take most of the afternoon. He'd been apologetic about it, kissing me multiple times before leaving. "I'll be back by 5, I promise. Rest today, my love. You and baby just relax." He'd touched my belly, talked to our daughter, we'd just found out we were having a girl, and told her daddy would be home soon. I'd smiled and waved as he drove away, completely unaware that in a few hours my entire life would explode. Around 2 in the afternoon, Christopher called me. It was his habit, checking in when he had a break from meetings. We were talking about baby names, laughing about his terrible suggestions, when I heard the front door open. Margaret's voice carried from the entryway, but she wasn't alone. Vanessa was with her, and they were talking in these low, urgent tones that made my blood run cold. I was still on the phone with Christopher, about to tell him his mother had arrived, when both women appeared in the doorway of the living room. They didn't notice the phone in my hand, didn't see that I was mid-conversation. What I saw in their eyes froze me to my core. This was it. Whatever they'd been planning, it was happening now. Margaret was carrying something, a huge pot that was steaming. The smell of soup filled the air, but it wasn't the comforting kind. It was ominous, threatening. Vanessa was right behind her, and she was smiling, not a friendly smile, a predator's smile. "Leave my son alone," Margaret suddenly screamed, and I jerked back in shock. Christopher's voice came through the phone. "Penelope, what's happening, baby? Talk to me." But I couldn't answer because Vanessa had lunged forward, grabbing at my phone. I pulled it away and she screamed, "Take your filthy baby and get out! Christopher is mine!" Everything happened so fast. I tried to stand, tried to run, but at 6 months pregnant, I was slow. Margaret moved with this horrible purpose, lifting that pot. I saw the soup, saw it was boiling, saw the steam rising, and I knew. Oh God, I knew what she was about to do. "Please," I begged, my hands instinctively going to protect my belly. "Please don't hurt my baby." Margaret's face was twisted with rage and something worse. Satisfaction. "This will teach you to trap my son," she shrieked, and then she poured it. The boiling soup hit my arms first as I tried to shield my belly, and the pain was beyond description. It was like being set on fire from the inside out. My skin was burning, literally cooking, and I couldn't escape it. The soup kept coming, covering my pregnant stomach, running down my legs, and I was screaming. I've never screamed like that in my life, didn't know a human could make sounds like that. Through my screams, I heard Vanessa. She was laughing. This woman was watching me burn and she was laughing hysterically, like this was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. "Yes! Finally!" she was cackling. "Look at her! This is perfect!" I collapsed on the floor, my body convulsing from the pain. My skin was blistering, peeling, and all I could think about was my baby. "Please let my baby be okay, please." Margaret was standing over me, breathing hard. "If you survive this, you'll leave on your own. No one will want you looking like this. You're finished, Penelope." Vanessa was actually taking photos with her phone, crouching down to get better angles of my agony. "Wait till everyone sees how pathetic you look. Christopher will be so disgusted." She was excited, energized by my suffering. I could hear Christopher's voice, distant, like it was coming from far away. He was screaming into the phone, "Penelope, baby, answer me. What's happening?" But I couldn't reach it, couldn't move. The phone had fallen from my hand during the attack, lying face up on the floor, still connected, still recording every word. Margaret and Vanessa didn't know. They thought they'd gotten away with it, thought there were no witnesses. They were already planning their next move. "We should pour more," Vanessa suggested, her voice gleeful. "Make sure the baby doesn't survive." That's when we heard it. The sound of tires screeching outside, a car door slamming, running footsteps, and then the front door literally crashed open. Christopher burst into the room like an avenging angel, and the expression on his face would have been terrifying if it wasn't the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. "What have you done?" His voice was raw, broken, furious. Behind him I could hear sirens. He'd called an ambulance, called the police, all while driving like a maniac to get home. Margaret's face went white. "Son, we can explain. I heard everything," Christopher roared. "The call was on, every threat, every word, every laugh. You tried to murder my wife." Vanessa backed up, suddenly looking less confident. "Christopher, you don't understand. We were trying to help you." "Help me?" He dropped to his knees beside me, his hands hovering over my body but afraid to touch and cause more pain. Tears were streaming down his face. "Penelope, baby, stay with me. Help is coming. You're going to be okay. Our baby is going to be okay." Paramedics rushed in, and the next few hours were a blur of pain and fear. I remember being loaded into an ambulance, Christopher climbing in with me, refusing to leave my side. I remember him holding my hand so tight, like if he let go, I'd disappear. I remember hearing the baby's heartbeat, faint but there, and crying with relief even as my body was on fire. At the hospital, they told us I had second- and third-degree burns over 30% of my body. Emergency surgery was needed to make sure the baby was okay. The doctors were blunt. The next 48 hours would determine if both of us survived. Christopher stayed in my ICU room, holding my hand through the worst of it, whispering promises and prayers and apologies, even though none of this was his fault. The police came to take his statement, and Christopher gave them his phone. The entire attack had been recorded. Crystal clear audio of everything Margaret and Vanessa had said and done. When the detective listened to it, I saw him physically recoil. "This is one of the most cold-blooded things I've ever heard," he said quietly. "They're both being arrested as we speak." But the investigation revealed so much more. Police found text messages between Margaret and Vanessa planning the attack. "Today we end her," Vanessa had written that morning. Margaret's search history was damning: how to cause miscarriage, accidental injury defenses, boiling water burn severity. They found bank records showing Vanessa had already paid Margaret $50,000 with a promise of $500,000 more once the job was done. There was even a contract. Margaret would receive a monthly allowance if Christopher married Vanessa. Christopher was destroyed. His own mother had tried to kill his wife and child for money. The woman who'd raised him, who he'd trusted and defended for years, had sold him out to the highest bidder. He called his lawyer from my hospital room and made it clear. He wanted them both prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. He quit his job immediately, refused to work another day for Vanessa's father. He cut all ties with Margaret, told the police she was dead to him. I spent weeks in that hospital. The pain was indescribable, even with the strongest medications. Skin grafts, surgeries, infections, setbacks. Christopher never left. He slept in a chair beside my bed, held my hand through every procedure, and talked to our baby girl every single day. "Your mama is the strongest woman in the world," he'd tell my belly. "She protected you. She survived for you, and we're going to make sure the people who did this pay for what they tried to take from us." The trial was a media circus. "Billionaire's daughter and mother-in-law attempt to murder pregnant woman" was splashed across every headline. Vanessa's father publicly disowned her, released a statement saying she didn't represent their family values. Margaret's friends abandoned her one by one as the details came out. The courtroom was packed when the prosecutor played that phone recording. Hearing it again was traumatic, but necessary. The jury needed to understand what these women had done. When Vanessa's laughter echoed through that courtroom, when Margaret's voice snarled about making me leave, I watched every face in that room react with horror and disgust. Several jurors were crying. The judge looked physically ill. Margaret tried to play the victim. "I'm just a mother who wanted better for her son." Her lawyer tried to claim temporary insanity, emotional distress. But the evidence was overwhelming. The premeditation, the planning, the money. This wasn't a moment of madness. This was attempted murder, plain and simple. Vanessa's defense was somehow worse. She actually tried to claim that if I was out of the picture, Christopher would have been happier, that she'd done this for love. The prosecutor destroyed that argument. This wasn't love. This was obsession, entitlement, and evil. You tortured a pregnant woman for sport. You laughed while she screamed. You took photos of her agony like it was entertainment. The sentencing came down hard. Margaret got 15 years in prison, Vanessa got 12. Both were ordered to pay $2 million in damages. Restraining orders for life were issued. The judge's words still ring in my ears. You two women represent the worst of humanity. You targeted someone at their most vulnerable, someone who couldn't fight back, and you did it without remorse. Society needs protection from people like you. But Christopher didn't stop there. With my permission, he released everything to the media. Every text message, every piece of evidence, every moment of abuse I'd documented. He wrote a public letter that went viral within hours. He detailed everything his mother had done, how she'd chosen greed over family, how she'd tried to murder her own grandchild. He exposed Vanessa's obsession, her belief that she could buy anything, including someone else's husband. The letter ended with words that still make me cry. My mother sold her soul for money. She tried to murder my wife and unborn child. She chose greed over love, wealth over family, and a stranger over her own son's happiness. This is not a mother, this is a monster, and she will pay for what she did every day for the rest of her life. To my wife, Penelope, you are my hero. Your strength saved our daughter. Your courage brought justice. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know how loved you are. The response was overwhelming. Margaret's reputation was completely destroyed. People she'd known for decades publicly cut ties. Vanessa became unemployable. No company would touch her after the scandal. Both women lost everything: freedom, money, respect, dignity, future. My recovery took months. Physical therapy to regain mobility in my burned arms, more surgeries to reduce scarring, counseling to deal with the trauma. Christopher was there for every single appointment, every painful session, every moment of despair. And against all odds, our baby girl survived. I gave birth 3 months after the attack. Hope, we named her Hope because that's what she represented. Hope was healthy, perfect, and absolutely beautiful. When the nurses placed her in my scarred arms for the first time, I sobbed. This little girl had survived a murder attempt while still in my womb. She was a fighter, just like her mama. The scars on my body are permanent. I'll carry them for the rest of my life. But you know what? I've learned to see them differently. They're not marks of victimhood. They're badges of survival. They're proof that I protected my daughter. They're evidence that love is stronger than evil, that a mother's instinct can withstand anything. Christopher and I moved to a new city for a fresh start. We needed distance from the memories, from the people who'd witnessed our trauma. We found a beautiful home with a big backyard for Hope to play in someday. Christopher found work at a company that values integrity over connections, and we started healing, truly healing, as a family. We did something else too. We started a foundation for abuse survivors, especially pregnant women in dangerous situations. We share our story to give others courage to speak up, to report, to escape. We provide resources, legal assistance, and safe housing. Because if sharing what happened to us can save even one person, then maybe all this pain had a purpose. People ask me sometimes if I forgive Margaret. The answer is no, and I don't feel guilty about that. Forgiveness isn't mandatory. It's not always the right choice. Some actions are unforgivable, and attempting to murder your own grandchild for money is one of them. Margaret and Vanessa are exactly where they belong, behind bars, facing the consequences of their evil choices. Do I think about them? Sometimes. I think about how greed destroys people from the inside, how obsession can turn someone into a monster, how family doesn't always mean loyalty or love, and I think about how grateful I am that I survived to tell this story, to hold my daughter, to grow old with the man who proved that true love really does conquer all. Christopher's love saved me. There's no other way to put it. If he hadn't been on that phone call, if he hadn't heard everything, I might not be here. Margaret and Vanessa would have gotten away with it, would have told police it was a tragic accident. But fate, karma, God, whatever you want to call it, made sure that phone stayed connected, made sure the truth came out, made sure justice was served. Today, hope is crawling everywhere, getting into everything, and filling our home with laughter. She doesn't know yet what happened before she was born, doesn't understand why Mama has scars or why she'll never meet her paternal grandmother. Someday we'll tell her, when she's old enough to understand. We'll tell her that she's a miracle, that she survived something no baby should ever have to survive, and that her very existence is proof that love is stronger than hate. Christopher is the father I always knew he'd be. Patient, loving, protective without being overbearing. He still talks to Hope the way he used to talk to my belly, telling her stories and promises and dreams for her future. He still looks at me like I'm the most precious thing in his world, scars and all. Our marriage didn't just survive this trauma, it became stronger, deeper, unbreakable. As for Margaret and Vanessa, they're learning what it means to lose everything. Margaret sits in a cell, cut off from the son she tried to manipulate and the granddaughter she tried to murder. Vanessa, the billionaire's daughter who thought she could buy anything, now owns nothing but regret and a prison uniform. Their names are infamous cautionary tales about greed and obsession and the consequences of evil. And me? I'm living my best life. I'm a mother, a wife, a survivor, and an advocate. I'm stronger than I ever imagined I could be. I'm proof that you can be broken and heal, that you can be victimized and still win, that you can be scarred and still be beautiful. If you're going through something similar, if someone is hurting you and telling you to stay quiet, please hear me. Speak up. Document everything. Tell someone. Your life matters. Your baby matters. Don't let fear or threats keep you silent. I stayed silent too long, and it almost cost me everything. And if you're in a position to help someone, to believe them, to support them, please do. You might be the difference between tragedy and survival. This is my story. This is my truth. And if sharing it helps even one person, then every scar was worth it. If this story moved you, if it resonated with something you've experienced, drop a comment below. Your story matters too. You're not alone in whatever you're facing. Subscribe and hit that bell icon because I share true stories of survival, justice, and the kind of love that refuses to give up. Every week I bring you real experiences that prove evil doesn't win forever, that karma is real, and that speaking your truth is the most powerful weapon you have. Remember this, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Trust your instincts. They're trying to protect you. And when love is real, genuinely real, no amount of money or manipulation or evil can destroy it. Christopher and I are living proof. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for standing with survivors. Thank you for believing that justice matters. You've given me strength today just by being here, and I hope I've given you some too. Stay strong, stay safe, and never let anyone make you feel like your voice doesn't matter. Because it does. You do. This is Penelope, signing off. Until next time.